you so much for the privilege of being here today. I really, really appreciate it. I just want to share a bit about myself, really, before we get into what we do as treasure seekers, because actually I feel that's what I bring to the table. I have got a counselling training, I'm a trained counsellor. I've also got a theology degree and a psychology degree. However, that is not, in essence, really the thing that I feel God uses in my life the most to do what I do. I was brought up in a really dysfunctional family. Yeah. And I was born in 1960. Hard to believe. I know.
Just a pup.
And had it been in today's time, I would like to think social services wouldn't have left me in the situation I was in. However, it was the 60s. I grew up with a father who had mental health issues that I had no relationship with other than being frightened of, and a mother who has what's called a narcissistic personality disorder, which meant that everything revolved around her. Her children existed in order to serve her needs, and mostly to make her look better. And how she would do that would be to put them down. It's a very, very screwed up way of living. Part of that disorder is there's no remorse, so you're never sorry about anything. It's always everybody else's fault. It also has to be, they have to be the best, the prettiest, the cleverest of everybody. So it was an environment that really crushed your spirit. I used to have to run home from school every lunchtime and after school to make sure she hadn't killed herself with the tablets that she said she was going to take as I walked out the door in the morning. She used to say that, and she used to say, "I'm going to stab your father." So I used to not know, it was a very, very unsafe environment to feel in. I could never join any after school activities because I always had to be there to make sure she didn't do what she threatened to do. I left school at 15. When I was probably about 12, I'd said I know what I want to do. I want to either be a teacher or a social worker. And she'd said, if you leave home, I will kill myself. So I just put that away and thought, that's it, that's not going to happen. So I left school at 15. But you know something that I've really, really discovered and know for sure is when God says, I will restore the years the locusts have eaten, Joel. And I certainly see that in my life. What I do now is a combination of all of the things that I really felt, well, I didn't realise at the time, but God had put in my heart to do. So I'm coming from a place where I understand what it feels like not to have roots. I understand what it feels like not to belong. I have two brothers. I have a twin brother, do you believe, and a brother who's 2 years older. None of us have got any relationships with each other because of the environment which we were brought up in. My elder brother coped with it by, in fact, he was in what you would now say is severe depression. He used to just lie in his bedroom with the curtains drawn. He left at 18 and said, look, I'm not looking back. And he created a whole new identity for himself. Now, I come from not a rich part, shall we say, of London. And he left home, so we came from the same place, but he now talks like this. So he's built himself this whole new person. And he won't. He said, I decided I'm leaving, I'm not looking back, and he never has. But he won't even look at his past. And as a result, he's quite a two-dimensional person because nothing's real with him. It's all constructed. He has this whole constructed identity, a constructed life. So you can't reach him on any level. My twin brother, when we were growing up, he used to have a really bad stomach, which caused a lot of bullying. He used to wet the bed, he used to set fire to things, he used to be cruel to animals, all the kind of red flashing lights that you've now seen. He now is actually quite like my mother. And he's really quite bitter, twisted. So, although technically I have a family, my father's now died, I don't belong anywhere. I have not had that sense of belonging. So, you know, there's been people come into my life over the years and said, I'll be your mum, I'll be like your mum. Because, you know, even now, you know, I'm 62, shock. But even now, I still feel there are times I think, oh, I would have loved to have a mum, loved to have a mum. But they'd come in and say that. Of course, they didn't know what they're tapping into with that kind of need. And then they'd say things like, oh, I've got the family coming at Christmas. And I think, ah, okay, you mean your family, not me, who has written myself into that. So, you know, along the way, being that vulnerable, you know, has been quite a challenge. What the results of it for me were, as I grew up, was a very low self-esteem, real lack of confidence that I could be anything, do anything. And, you know, God has sort of really pulled me out. And this is where I just feel I really want to share with you a passage in Isaiah, where it says, do not forget the rock from which you were cut, or the quarry from which you were hewn. Because it would be easy to stand up now and say, this is amazing, this ministry that God has built in Treasure Seekers. You know, I do training for street pastors, the police, Gloucestershire Constabulary, all the security pieces of people, how to de-escalate people that are really up high in crisis. You know, and we reach over 2,000 people a week with learning disabilities, mental health problems, personality disorders. And it would be easy just to share that part with you today. You know, we will look at some of those things, but actually what I want to share really is that comes out of God choosing the weak things of the world to make strong, and the foolish things to shame the wise. And, you know, and so having that really deep understanding of what it feels like not to have roots, and how vulnerable that feels. You know, I felt God really leading me into looking at reaching the lost and building a home. What I really wanted when I was growing up was children and my own home, and now but actually children changed my life in many ways, because I started to look as I was seeing the children, and I think, how could anyone do that? Yes. And you begin, when you would grow up in an abusive environment, you don't recognise it as abuse, because it's normal. And so that, and of course, I was 21 when I became a Christian, and that again, I felt like, gosh, this is love. And realising I'd never been loved. So it was a bittersweet thing, because suddenly you're looking at face to face all the damage and all the abuse, and seeing it for what it is, but feeling that love. So I look at the thing, and God really called me to build. I wanted a home for myself with family, but I wanted to build a home for others. I wanted to build a safe space where people could come, no matter what stage they were in their lives, you know, and find that foundation of security and belonging. Because actually, people belong before they believe. And they do. They need to feel they belong. And they need to feel they've got something meaningful to contribute. And so we embarked down this journey. James has shared about the conference we went on 30 years ago, and we both felt, you know, our calling is to reach the lost. I didn't realise how lost God was going to take us into, but I knew that feeling. I knew what it was like to have felt that myself. So I felt my calling has always been outreach, community, to get alongside those most in need, most vulnerable. So, long story, but I'll try and keep it short. I started to do some work with adults with learning disabilities, set up some discos, a performing arts programme, all kinds of things to draw them in and reach them. And then as that happened, people were coming that had mental health problems and learning disabilities. People come out with mental health problems. People come out with personality disorders. I don't know if you know anything about personality disorders, do you? No, but they are very complex people, and it's estimated about 60% of people in our judicial system have personality disorders. And they leave chaos all around them. They create chaos and they make chaos. So they were coming along, and it was just exploding with all this diverse group of people. And I was working at the time as the community pastor at our church, and that got a little bit difficult. It got difficult for people outside to understand what that meant, because, oh, you're pastor from the church. Oh, what do you want from me then? Okay, you just want me to get in there. You'll be in there, don't you? You want bums on pews, that's what you want. No way. And it got difficult for some people inside the church, because, like James was saying, it's not about us. But some people come to church and they want that, and it's fair enough, they want a pastor, but it wasn't my role, was not for me to do it with the already convinced. It was to be out there. So there was these tensions around that title. So I thought, you know, if that's a problem, let's get rid of the title. I don't care what you call me, I've been called lots of things, so I don't mind. Call me what you like. And we set up a social enterprise, which is very similar to a charity, but we have more restraints on us in that anything we actually make as a social enterprise or produce, if I were as director to go, it has to go back into community. You can't make a profit from it. So we felt we wanted that. I set it up with my daughter Katie and my son-in-law, 3 of us set it up. And we wanted that level of protection around it, so it would be transparent. Nobody could come and look and say, actually, that's a bit odd. So we set that up 10 years ago, it was, and I was sort of thinking, my goodness, what do we do? Because, you know, we haven't got anything really. Who are we? What are we going to do? And I felt this verse that has been so dear to me since Isaiah 58 verse 9, and I felt God say this to me: if you do away with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourself on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the lost, then your light will shine and your night will become like the noonday. And I felt like God was saying, look, I'm asking you to do 2 things. Okay, build a safe environment, build a healing environment, no malicious talk or pointing fingers, no judgment. Build a healing environment and pay the cost. Spend yourself, it's not about you, on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the lost. And that's all you've got to do. You haven't got to worry about getting a social media presence, getting this enterprise up and known. And yes, you know, you do what you can, but actually that's not your responsibility. If you do these 2 things, I will take care of the rest. And boy, has he done that. You know, I just like have been amazed at the kind of people he's brought into our lives in order to do that. But and that's constantly what I come back to over and over again. That is all I've got to do. I've got to worry about all of how to promote ourselves, how to get this organisation looking better than others. We don't have to worry about that. We just have to get on and do the work. And you know your light shines then. And that's what God had said. So it's Treasure Seekers, social enterprise, Kingfisher Treasure Seekers. It's Kingfisher, so there is a link to our family, Kingfisher family. And it's Treasure Seekers because we truly believe every single person has got treasure in them, don't we? You know, and every single person has an innate value to God. And so that's what our role is, to uncover the treasure. We try, and our vision, if you like, of the social enterprise is to help people become the best versions of themselves. Not what we think they ought to be, but the best versions of themselves. And doing that, we have so many ministries now, groups. As I say, we reach over 2,000 people a week. We've got 60, I think about 63 staff. We're just taking on some more, about 250 volunteers. So, and that's just started with just the 3 of us. But it shows you, it's fantastic. In some ways it's really sad, because the level of need that is out there. And I say this is my opinion, I truly think, certainly in the UK, the adult social care system is broken. And there are people out now, I've been working with really vulnerable people, as I say, for years and years, but there are people now with learning disabilities, for example, that are supposed to be independent, that don't even know how to dress. And they're coming in and we're having to sort of make sure they're not looking, well, they're looking decent. And yet they're thrown out there like lambs to the slaughters. People with personality disorders, there is no treatment because they say it's not mental health. People with mental health, you have to wait. We've got children and young people's mental health services that I work with alongside, and their waiting list is months to get in, just for an appointment, not before you start any interventions. So we set this up as the aim to provide the services, but also to try and build a model that society would look at and think, actually that can work. Because the way our system works at the moment, everything is siloed. The police have a budget, the ambulance, A&E have a budget, adult social care have a budget, children, young people's services have a budget, and nobody wants to talk to each other, nobody wants to cross that over. And we just thought, do you know, we want to build something that can show you can make this difference. And so it was two reasons. One, you know, fill that need, and the other is to have some sort of societal reformation, really, which we're now privileged to be speaking into, sort of the real high people in. I mean, don't ask me how it happened, but I became friends with Duncan Selby. He used to be the what's it called, Public Health England, CEO of Public Health England, until coronavirus, and then he got blamed for all the lack of PPE equipment. But anyway, but this is what I'm saying. I've left school at 15. You know, I've come from nothing, and God brought him into our lives. So we wanted to do that. So now, I'm sorry, I'm trying to rush. It's just now we do say over 2,000 people, probably more than that now, a week. We do things like many services for learning disabilities, of which none of them are funded by the council, government, totally self-funded, because there's no money to do that. Yet we're inundated with need. We do services for adults with mental health problems. We have a cafe, there's 3 buildings in town, but we have a cafe that we open as a safe space. So totally inclusive, anyone can come in, it's a safe space. It's open from 10 in the morning till 11 at night, 365 days a year, apart from a Sunday when it's 4 till 11. And then a lot of people that come to that cafe now come to our church. It's a safe place. James is brilliant. He is, because he'll go down into there every single day, and we're living amongst the people that we're reaching. So, well, that's a new one, isn't it? Yeah, I'll talk about it. I was saving that. That is so exciting. That's so exciting. Anyway, yeah, 4. So, out of there, we run in the evenings from 6 to 11, 365 days a year. We run a drop-in service where we've got 3 staff and volunteers to help people with mental health problems. Now, they can be in crisis, or they can be, actually, if I was to stay at home on my own, in the rubbish accommodation that I live in, with often no family around or anybody around, my anxiety levels would go up and up and up. My depression would get worse and worse. So they come night after night, and it's home for them. They can come and meet. So police will bring people there that they pick up in the street, because they have to, by law, take them to a safe space. And if that person hasn't got anyone, take them to, that means either they go to A&E, if they're risking self-harm, or they put them in the cells for a night. That's what we've got to offer. After 5 o'clock, when the clinical services shut their doors, that is what is on offer. So we set up this mental health drop-in. We have had 1,400 individuals, not drop-ins. We have 1,400 individuals assigned to us that come to us. And now we've just, a few months ago, which has been a battle to get it, so I'm so excited about it, we've got a youth support drop-in, starting from age 14 to 25. Our young people, they are a lost generation. They come in, and so many are, the levels of self-harm that we see, you know, they cut themselves, they set fire to themselves. The latest thing is they tie ligatures around their neck and try. So we've had to go around everywhere, even like just trying to look. It's funny, you look everywhere now. See a tiny bit of pipe hanging or something, we've had to box because they would, you know, it's a threat, it's a difficult thing. In order to run those services, those two services, we have to have the same policies and procedures as a GP practice. So the actual, all that, I don't do any of that. No. People I get, technology, well, that's something else. So, but that's the kind of, so we have that. Do you know, somebody that came to our, when we first started our drop-in for mental health, and we have people that have got all sorts of paranoid schizophrenia, PTSD, depression, you know, all sorts of different mental health issues. This guy came in, and he came in and he'd have a coffee, and he'd sit and he'd do his word search, and off he'd tottle. So, night after night after night. Then one day I got a call from social services saying, does this guy come to you? I said, yeah, only we've been really worried. They said, he is regularly on a section 136. Now, section 136 is where the police have to intervene, pick them up because they're at risk to the public, themselves, and they have to go into a cell with a mental health. So we haven't seen his name, and he was one of our vets, so we thought he died. So they've been out looking for him, because he's been tossed. And when he told me his name, he would have been the last person I would have thought they'd have said, because never at moments issue of he'd come in, do his word search, and off he'd tottle. You know, just go after that, no issues at all. Yet police were picking him up night after night, causing mayhem, causing all sorts of issues for them, because he couldn't cope with being on his own. He couldn't self-soothe. He had no way of de-escalating by himself. And you know, so and another gentleman came, and over Christmas time I do like big stockings for each of them, of presents, and we have like all of the food out on the tables like you would do at home. Because I think anybody that's there over Christmas time, they are there because they have nowhere else. And he came in, and he's about 6'4", yeah, and you know, a bit gruff, but fine. He came in and he said, I gave him his card, and he started crying, started tears. No, I have not had a card, birthday card or Christmas card for 8 years since my father died. You know, didn't even expect a present. I've not had a card from anybody for 8 years. So to come in and just get that, you see, it's love, isn't it? Yeah, you can't, we don't have to worry about all the other stuff. No. It's just showing that. And so it's that kind of place that's that safe place. We have, I mean it's done, those that have seen it will know it's done in, it's the most non-clinical environment you could ever see. And when I first did that, I wanted it to feel like home. Yeah. I didn't want like tables that are screwed to the floor and bare walls. Yeah. You know, in fact, the first week we opened it, I had a guy came in, he's paranoid schizophrenia. He came in and he's in his 40s. He sadly died last week. He came and he said, have I got the right place? I said. And I said, why do you ask? Because he was in his 40s. And he'd been accessing mental health services since he was 18. Yeah. And he went in, it's too nice. Yeah. It's too nice. That is appalling, that's ever said. We did a sort of small project with the guys that use our adult support services and our young people support services. We had somebody that was good at creative writing come in and help them try and write down what they were feeling. So these are their words. Okay, I'm trying to communicate to you how rubbish their lives are. These are their words. And this one starts off with this. Dear parents, if only you knew. If only you knew the pain I'd felt, everything I've seen, all I've been through, then maybe you would understand. Maybe you'd understand where your little girl went, why her eyes became empty, why she lost the ability to smile, why she faded away. If only you knew. If only you knew that the long sleeves I wear all year round are a cover-up. They hide a lifetime worth of pain. Why, you ask? Because while you were spending your night drinking, I spent mine locked in a bathroom with a small piece of metal. She was my only comfort, all I could rely on because you weren't there. If only you knew. If only you knew that all my money goes on alcohol and cigarettes and drugs because maybe, just maybe, they'll help me breathe for the first time. If only you knew. If only you knew that the bruises on my body weren't from falling over. My body was no longer mine. It was the property of grown men, taller and stronger than me. They wanted to play and I didn't have a choice. If only you knew. If only you knew I didn't buy extra large clothing for comfort. They were used as a disguise. They hid the results of, I'm not hungry, I ate earlier, I'm going to eat at a friend's. They hid the salt water and bathroom trips. If only you knew. If only you knew that I wasn't staying with friends, I was fighting for my life, the life that I didn't want. If you knew how determined I had to be to collect and swallow every single pill. If only you knew. If you knew the disappointment I felt when I woke up with wires attached to my body. It's from a life I didn't want. If only you knew. If only you knew your baby was on the edge, deciding which way to fall and to fall over. But then again, you weren't there. If only you knew. If only you knew what living has done to me. If you weren't too busy for me, maybe, just maybe, I would still be the same little girl you used to know. If only you knew I needed to be saved, then things could be different. If only you knew. Hundreds, one of hundreds, honestly. And then, I know we've run out of time, but there was loads and loads of, we got them to write down some of their thoughts. It was just very vulnerable. The biggest thing we do is try and get trust. These people have been broken so many times that, you know, they don't trust very easily, put it that way. So for them to do this was a massive thing. And then they all wrote a collected poem about the cabin, just about, and it's called This Place.
So what the cabin is?
Cabin is the coffee shop. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Cabin's a coffee shop where we have the safe space.
Yes.
And they wrote this. This place is a safe space. Everyone there is for one another. The cabin is a second home. This place lets me be vulnerable. It's integral to my survival. This is my safe space. This space has a foundation of broken hearts repaired by one another. This place is a family.